Hello everyone, welcome back to the workshop. As you can see, I got my front axle components right here. I have put them in citric acid, water brushed it off, weld what needed to be welded, grinded what needed to be grinded, cleaned it off with nitro thinner just to degrease the surface, and now I have put on the first coat of primer. So now we are back and we're going to do the second coat of epoxy primer. I think I'm going to use my time wisely and try to paint as much as I possibly can, so it will be prepped for color maybe next day. Anyways, this is it. These parts are now in the second coat of epoxy primer. I have now been looking at these, the lower control arms, and decided that we are going to reinforce them with adding a lower plate. We'll have to make sure that we have holes for the potential water to run out, so things won't get all rusty again, and to leave the holes for the ball joints. Now we're going to do this, and I'm going to touch up on them a little bit. I started with a sandpaper just to smooth them out a little bit. Maybe that's crazy, maybe that's a little bit too much, but you know, I only plan to do this once, so I would like things to be as best as they possibly can be. So I'm going to smooth things out, touch up on some stuff where bare metal will come out because of the sanding, and then we're going to have to paint all of this inside before we cover it up, just because it's not going to be accessible after we close the lower portion, just because of the geometry of the control arm itself. So this is it. This is coming today, and we are also making the edge around the trunk area where the gasket was. Everything was rusty and crusty. The edge is mostly gone, and we need to make a new edge so we can attach a new gasket to prevent water from getting into the trunk. So we have quite a lot of work, especially with the edges. It's a little bit of a nightmare just because they're tense in two directions mostly. So we have quite a lot of work ahead of us, but let's make the most out of this beautiful weather. Okay, so I have sanded all of this with a 80 grit sandpaper, and now everything is kind of leveled. I mean, it's not perfectly leveled, but it's better than it was, just because of the surface deformations that we had because of citric acid and rust and welds and grinding and stuff like that. So now we just have it a little bit better than it was, and now I have blew everything off with a compressed air. Now I'm going to use fresh cloths and nitro thinner just to kind of degrease everything, because I touch with my bare fingers and you have oil on your skin, and this can affect how your paint will stick on it. So I think I still have about hour and a half of daylight of sun, so I want to work as quick as possible just to kind of get everything done while the sun is still out, so I can clearly see everything. The only major bit is over here, just because we had to weld a little bit, and we have also preparing these reinforcements. We have created holes for the water to be drained out. This will go around the control arm, sealing it off, but we still have some holes so water can run out. You can still insert the ball joint and put wax in, so everything will be nice and sealed. But I'm going to prepare this inside or later or tomorrow or anything. This is not that important, those ones are. Now I'm going to paint all of this in epoxy primer, and then tomorrow probably I will go with polyurethane 2-component paint everything that I can reach, and then clean this edge off and apply zinc weld through primer. So when we're going to weld this will be nice and protected. Then I'm going to go with a straw and just hit it one last time with paint just to kind of fill any gap, so it will be nice and sealed. I don't think I'm going to be able to come inside with seam sealer, but that's okay, because I think this will be good. Anyways, this car will not be a daily driver, so keep that in mind. It's not going to see a whole bunch of salt. So this is it. We have painted the control arms for the first time in black. First we have applied epoxy primer in bright color. Now we have put on semi-gloss black urethane paint. The reason for the bright primer is that we can see through the black if we didn't do a very good job in some places. This is just the first layer. We're going to do probably 2 or maybe 3, we'll see. Maybe address some details later. But this is it. It's sunbathing now, and I think in a couple of hours it will be ready for the second coat.